Good afternoon. I'm with Bob Moriarty, founder of 321gold.com. Bob is a veteran gold investor, very experienced, been writing about gold for several decades. And here we are today at 2,600 an ounce, actually a little bit above 2,600 an ounce. Bob, how does it feel to be a gold bug today?
Oh, actually, it feels terrible. Okay, because while I do own physical gold that I bought in the 280-300 range, and actually I'm thrilled there. I've got all these juniors that suck.
So the mistake was not just only buying metal, it was buying miners too, huh?
Well, strange enough, this situation where really you'd be better off with the ETFs. But you and I were talking off camera. The DSI is only 82 on gold, which is not a backbreaker, and we've got a record high for gold. I think we're in for exciting times, and actually, I'll change that. We're in very dangerous times. Okay, who knows if there's going to be an election this year? The geopolitics danger is very high, but there's so many screaming deals. You just came back from Beaver Creek, and I'm really interested in hearing what you saw there.
Yeah, I was at Beaver Creek Precious Metals Summit last week, Monday through Friday. Just got back Saturday night, actually. Busy conference. I've attended Beaver Creek, I believe, 5 times now. Obviously, we skipped a year in 2020 for the pandemic, but this was the busiest one of the 5 I've been to. I feel like people had jam-packed schedules with meetings back to back to back. Tara Christie, the CEO of Banyan Gold, had 56 meetings. I don't know how she did it. I had about half as many as she did, and I was tired at the end. She just kept going, and there were a lot of people, a lot of CEOs with packed schedules. I heard a couple of CEOs tell me they had to turn down meetings with Tech or Barrick because they're already all booked up, which is, normally a junior mining CEO doesn't turn down a meeting with Barrick Gold. But that's just how it was. It was super busy, and the sentiment. I didn't feel like it was $2,600 gold sentiment. If you had asked me in 2022, if gold goes to 2,600, what's the mood going to be like at this conference in 2 years? I would say, well, they'd be popping champagne in the hallways, and it would just be a nonstop party. No, it was very businesslike, right? And there wasn't really much celebrating going on. And as you said, that's because the junior mining stocks are not following the gold price, or at least they haven't so far. So I feel like it was a positive mood. There's definitely some optimism there, but it just feels like we're just getting started.
I'm going to agree with you there. Silver has just barely come along for the ride, and I think silver is about to go a lot higher. But $2,600 gold is just absolutely extraordinary. And as you said before, I think there's going to be a lot of mergers and takeovers because the majors are not replacing, they're eating their young, and they need to stop doing that. They've stopped funding juniors, and that's going to end up being a very expensive mistake.
Yeah, I do believe. I mean, I think that the M&A cycle is in full swing now, and I don't think it's peaking out yet. I think we're still on the upswing. So yeah, I agree. I think we're going to see a lot more deals, a lot more consolidation over the next 6 to 12 months. I feel like it's just getting started, and in mining, size matters, scale matters, and there's no point in doing all the permitting, building a company, having all the corporate overhead and just having a small mine or a couple small mines, you might as well have scale and do it as big as you can. So I think that's what we're going to see in the mining sector, in the junior mining sector over the coming months. You know, you reached out to me a few days ago and you said, you know, I think we should talk soon. There's a lot to talk about. And one of the things you mentioned was you think September 21st is an important date. Why is that?
Someone reached out to me 2 weeks ago who has been an intelligence professional for 40 years, and he made a very convincing argument to me that China was going to invade Taiwan starting on the 20th and actually full scale on the 21st, 22nd. And I've read hundreds of intelligence reports when I was in combat, and it read very accurately. Some of the things going on right now are terrifying, and we are ignoring them at our peril. There are 5 Russian submarines surrounding the UK right now, which has taken the position that they're going to allow their long-range missiles to be fired into Russia. Putin has made it absolutely clear that's a red line. Don't cross that red line. There are 30 Russian submarines surrounding the United States. Should China invade Taiwan, Iran will get involved, Hezbollah will get involved, Russia will get involved, and potentially North Korea could get involved. Now, NATO tends to be backing down right now. Somebody's finally taken Putin seriously, but we are literally on the cusp of World War III.
I feel like I've heard you say that before. Why is this more imminent now than it was a year ago or a year and a half ago?
Because 5 submarines surrounding the UK could destroy the UK in 15 minutes. 30 submarines surrounding the United States could destroy the United States in 15 minutes. We're messing with fire. Now, if there was something to be gained in Yukon or in Ukraine, and you and I have talked about that at some length, there's nothing to be gained, okay? NATO's not going to win anything. The United States is not going to win anything. It's destroyed the European economy. And the very best thing to do would be declare a ceasefire and send the combatants home. I've been against this war from the very beginning, and I will say I've been correct for 2 years. It is a stupid war. We have nothing to gain. And strange enough, are we really willing to go into a nuclear war to support the most corrupt country in Europe? And my answer would be that would be pretty stupid.
I don't see what Russia has to gain by nuking the UK or the US. I think they only have a lot to lose. And why would China invade Taiwan now? Why not wait them out? Why not try to do it through non-violent means? It seems to be their strategy is playing the long game. I don't get why it will be this week.
Well, Sullivan just went to China, and a Chinese general grabbed him by his tie and yanked him and said, China is going to invade Taiwan. What the news media doesn't bother telling Americans is the United States position on Taiwan and China is that Taiwan has always been a part of China. So to pretend that Taiwan is some totally separate independent nation that China threatens, I think is very foolish. I don't see China as being the giant threat that the neocons do, but I see the neocons and NATO as a threat to world peace. If the United States and Britain and France and Germany continue on the path that they're on, there will be a nuclear war. Now, if you go back to what does Putin stand to gain, he stands to gain exactly the same thing John F. Kennedy stood to gain in November of 1962. Putin's been clear from the beginning. I want secure borders. The United States lied 30 years ago, said that NATO would not move an inch to the east. Ukraine lied in 2016 in the Minsk II agreement. The United States and NATO and the European nations have always been the aggressors, and they stand to gain nothing. Why would they want to destroy Russia? It's their neighbor. And it's so foolish. I can't believe we're still doing it. And quite bluntly, let me point something out. I'm going to ask you a question you cannot possibly answer. And strange enough, the question shows how big a problem we've got. You ready?
Okay.
Who's running the United States?
I don't know.
Nobody knows. Okay. We have this bizarre situation where we have a president in place who's senile. Okay. Now, if he's senile and he's not competent to stand criminal charges for mishandling classified documents with the DOJ, came up and agreed, why is he president? Why have they not hit him with the 25th Amendment? Now, I don't like Kamala Harris, but the fact is, having a blob as president of the United States is just about the most dangerous thing I could think of. And the other dangerous thing that I could think of is the deep state really wants to whack Donald Trump. And somebody said something to me so funny, I just had to laugh. He pointed out that there have been more assassination attempts on Donald Trump than there have been interviews by Kamala Harris.
Yeah, we're up to 2. Last weekend was very strange. I think we have a whack job who didn't really know how to do an assassination, got caught in the act. I wonder how many other whack jobs are out there. I'm sure there's quite a few. Certainly, just based upon the things we know about this guy, this was no surprise to anybody who knew him. It shouldn't have been a surprise to the FBI or the Secret Service either. But anyway, yeah, I think the odds of something really bad happening between now and November 5th, and I say really bad vaguely because I'm not sure exactly what it will be, but I think the odds of something really bad happening are pretty good. It seems like we're tempting fate at this point.
I totally agree, and you put that perfectly. You said that absolutely correctly. We don't know what's going to happen. We just know the odds of something bad happening are extremely high.
Yeah. So the Federal Reserve announces their interest rate decision tomorrow at 2 p.m. Chair Powell will have the press conference. Some interesting things have happened in the last week, Bob. You read my Substack, and you recall last Wednesday I wrote that I thought the Fed would go 25 basis points, but it would be a mistake, and they would end up cutting 50 in November to make up for their mistake. Well, 48 hours later, the market decided that no, the Fed's going to go 50 tomorrow, and it's just very interesting how quickly that changed and how suddenly you had all the Fed commentators all suddenly being in agreement that 50 basis points is the way to go. I'm not sure what exactly changed last week, but something sure did. And it begs the question, well, what does this mean for gold? I mean, if it, let's just just play this out, in our minds now. If the Fed cuts 50 tomorrow, the election happens, whoever wins, wins. Then they have another meeting the day after the election. Most likely the economy is going to continue to weaken throughout October. So if they go 50 tomorrow, very likely they're going to have to go 50 again in November, because if they step down to 25, it'll be that they're getting close to their target. No, they won't be close to their target. They'll still be at 5%. So there's a chance they could go 50 tomorrow, 50 November, 50 in the last meeting of the year, 350 basis point rate cuts in a row. It seems like this could be rocket fuel for precious metals. What say you?
Strange enough, and I think that's an excellent question, but it's missing one key element that I don't think anybody else is talking about it. If you were to pick the primary driver of the price of gold today, what do you think it is?
I mean, it's probably central bank buying.
It's better than that. Now, let me ask the question in a different way. What's the primary driver been for most of the last 6 months?
What's the primary driver been for most? Well, I think it probably have to do with the U.S. Treasury deficit, the debt, the fact that the Fed is stuck.
It's a lot easier than that. The premiums in Shanghai for both gold and silver have been the drivers, and the premiums have been higher than the price of gold and the price of silver. So I think a lot of people would agree that for pretty much most of the last 6 months, China's been the driver. Now, what you're talking about, the Fed, the interest rates, all of that is true, but if you're trying to find the primary driver, you have to hone it down. And this is going to really surprise you. I believe the primary driver of gold today is Russia.
You think Russia's been buying?
I know Russia's been buying.
And you think they're
ask me the question.
You think they've been buying in a secretive way?
I don't care. Here's the deal. The United States put sanctions on the entire world about dealing with Russian banks. And a lot of Chinese banks stopped dealing with Russian banks because they, in theory, would be liable under the US sanctions. Russia has been paying bills to China in gold. Russia's been shipping tons and tons of gold to China. And that opens a whole new ballgame. I mean, one thing that's crystal clear, if you take the chart of gold and if you take the chart of silver, we got record high prices for gold. I look at $2,600 gold, you go, holy cow, I'm rich. And then, of course, I look at my stock portfolio and go, I thought I was rich. But silver is only $31 an ounce now. It was higher 2 or 3 months ago, and gold's hit a new record high. Something that's driving the price of gold. And I believe the sanctions against China were actually effective. I'm not saying they made sense. I think they were effective, and it's forced Russia into buying gold. That would be a real game changer. And at some point, we're going to hit a tipping point. We know it's going to happen with silver, and it easily could happen with gold. there is a relationship between the price of gold and the price of silver, and there's also a relationship between the price of platinum and the price of gold. Platinum's not going up. Silver hasn't gone up that much, but gold continues higher. Therefore, there's a big buyer in the market somewhere, and I think it's Russia. And that's just kind of interesting. I found China buying through Shanghai to be a really interesting element. But going back to the Fed, and you know, I'm not a big fan of the Fed, but that is another tailwind for gold. If you're correct, and I don't make those kind of predictions because I'm not smart enough, if we had a 150 basis point drop in interest rates, that would be a giant boot up the butt for gold.
Yeah, there's a lot of things I want to follow up on there. So first of all, yes, you're right. 150 basis points of cuts in the next 3.5 months could be spectacular for gold and silver. You know, the Fed doesn't often cut 50 basis points. You look back through history or look back at other major central banks like the European Central Bank, the BOJ, 50 basis point rate cuts are not common. And actually, if you look at the Fed, the last 2 times they've done it was during a recession or prior to the global financial crisis in 2007, 2008. It's pretty much they only cut 50 when the recession is here. So I mean, yeah, it's a sample size of 3, but hey, it's 100%. I'd say the Fed is not. It does not have a tendency to cut more than 25 basis points at a time for fear of sending the wrong signal to markets and investors or creating fear. So if they go 50, it means they really need to go 50. So I think if that happens tomorrow, it's going to be very bullish. Could it result in a short-term topping, parabolic move in gold? Yes, it could. I mean, we could get up to 2,700 and then it'd be too overbought, but I don't think we want to overthink it yet. I still think I want to be long here. Going to silver, so looking at the weekly chart of silver, this is a breakout. I mean, this is a beautiful chart structure in silver. And you make a good point that gold is at an all-time high, silver is not. Silver has lagged a lot of this move in 2024. And usually, if we look at history, like we go back to like 2010, 2011, or even 2020, silver really had its big advance late in the move, right? Like in 2010, silver wasn't really moving. And then at the end of the year, it finally picked up steam and it really had a big move in early 2011, and it caught up to gold and then surpassed gold at the end of that bull market cycle. And I think just the fact that silver is lagging, it tells us where we are in this bull market. We're not late in the cycle. We're still pretty early. What are your thoughts on that as far as silver is telling us where we're at in the cycle?
That's a very perceptive way of putting it, and I agree 100%. Silver is always the last person to show up at the party, and the penny dreadfuls. Strange enough, the biggest argument for the giant bull move is the penny dreadfuls aren't doing squat.
Yeah, and there's a few reasons we can probably attribute that to. Well, the cost of capital is high. The seniors did not have good years in 2022 and 2023. They had pretty bad years. So if the seniors aren't doing well, it's really hard for the juniors to do well. So usually the juniors are going to be more of a late cycle bull market move. It's not going to be the 10, 20 million market cap explorers are not going to be the first ones to move. It's going to be the $50 billion multinational miners that's going to be the first one to move. Like that's where the hedge funds are going to go to, because that's the only thing they can buy. They can't buy the $20 million market cap juniors. later in the cycle, after Newmont has doubled or tripled, then you'll see the juniors get into the party. And I feel like that's the stage that we're getting to. We're still getting there. We're clearly not there yet, but I feel like we're getting pretty close to that point, Bob.
I agree.
I want to ask you some more specific junior mining questions. You know, you've got a lot of experience in this business. There's a lot of controversy over best jurisdiction. What's the best jurisdiction for mining in the world? Is it you know, Finland? Is it West Africa? Is it Australia? Is it Arizona? What, in your opinion, when you look at juniors, what's the one place in the world where you're like, ah, this is a great jurisdiction. I want to buy this stock, you know, because they're operating here.
I'm very biased, and I'm not going to say I'm the best guy in the industry to call that. But like everybody else, I've got an opinion. I happen to think it's probably Canada, and the real question shouldn't be what's the best jurisdiction. The real question should be, who do I want to avoid? And if you look at Mexico, they've just cut their own throats. This resource nationalization is always popular with the mob, and it always destroys the mining industry in that country. It happened in Bolivia in 1954, and it's taken them 70 years to really recover. And Bolivia is a great jurisdiction now. But Peru gets stupid on a regular basis. Colombia is stupid right now. Mexico's a disaster area. So some of what you mentioned, Australia tends to be very good. But for some reason, this is really interesting. The Australian juniors never get the valuation that I think they should. For some reason, people like the Canadian juniors a lot better than the Australian juniors. But there's countries in West Africa that are very good. But I think for the absolute top would be Canada, #1, and probably Nevada, #2.
Canada's a big place. There's a few jurisdictions inside Canada, like there's BC, there's Ontario, there's Newfoundland. Which is your favorite province or territory of Canada?
I like Ontario a lot, but it's because there's so much gold there. But the Canadians actually do some things financially sometimes that make a lot of sense. The United States is being stupid. They don't encourage their mining industry. Mining is a bad name in the United States, but it's not a bad name in Canada. But we've talked at length about Yukon. I think there's some really great projects in the Yukon right now. I would like to see a really big takeover or a really big set of assay results. I think Snowline is a slam dunk for takeover. Do you realize how much they're getting per ounce in the ground?
It's less than $100 an ounce.
$85 an ounce. That's
Yeah.
stupid. Okay, they should be getting 200 to 400 in a takeover, and they're getting $85 an ounce. Give me a break. You know, the most junior of exploration companies were getting $100 an ounce back in 2011.
I agree. So Snowline was one of my better meetings at Beaver Creek. I had a really good meeting with Scott and his team. That's definitely a favorite of mine, and I agree. I mean, that's the kind of beautiful ore body that could definitely fetch $200 an ounce. But you know, they need to de-risk it further. Obviously, there's been some negative optics in the Yukon in 2024, so they just need to work through that and prove that they have strong support from the First Nations. in their area. I want to talk about the U.S. So the Stibnite Gold Project got its U.S. federal permits from the U.S. Forest Service. That's in Idaho. Perpetua, your resources in Idaho, PPTA, on the U.S. exchange and the NYSE. That's a big deal, Bob. The state of Idaho is kind of coming of age again. It was a big mining state in the late 1800s, early 1900s. The Stibnite, I'm not sure if you know the history there, but that was mined for antimony during the Second World War, and the sort of the U.S. Army left it as an environmental mess in the 50s, and it's been a reclamation project ever since. Well, Perpetua has moved it back to being a permanent mining operation, big gold deposit with a lot of antimony as a bonus. What are your thoughts on that news?
Well, didn't China just restrict sales of antimony?
Yes.
Okay, that's a big deal. And you've got two sources. Well, actually, I'm being stupid. You got one source, big source of antimony, and that's in both southern Idaho and in northern Idaho in the Silver Belt. So I think there's a bright future for antimony, if for no other reason than the geopolitical tension between the United States and China. The United States keeps forgetting that sanctions are a boomerang, okay? And you can throw sanctions and try to hit somebody, but the damn boomerang always comes back and whacks you in the head. So there's one more instance of sanctions that have hurt the person who issued the sanctions, not the person they were aimed at. China's a big, powerful, rich country, and it's, compared to the United States and NATO, it's a peaceful country. I don't like a lot of the way they do business, but frankly, when you look at the United States today and look at NATO and going after Telegraph and going after Elon Musk, I read something today that was so funny. Hillary Clinton just did an interview, and she was saying, purveyors of misinformation, we should even consider criminal charges. And if misinformation was a criminal offense, and you ask me, name one person whose face should be on every milk carton in the United States, it would be Hillary Clinton. She's still playing the Russians affected the 2016 election. And the really funny thing is, the one thing Hillary Clinton has never admitted was Hillary Clinton lost that election because she was the most despised candidate in American history. And as much as the Democrats cheated in 2016, she lost because she's Hillary Clinton. And now she's turning around and saying we need to lock people up who lie, cheat, and steal. Excuse me, Hillary, but people in glass houses shouldn't be throwing rocks.
Yeah, that was a shock result, and she had everything in her favor, including the national media, and that was a real shock upset. I want to ask you a sentiment question, Bob. You're a student of market sentiment, and let's assert that we are at the beginning of a bull move in the junior mining sector. So at some point down the road, it could be 6 months from now, it could be a year from now, it could be a month from now, some of these stocks might actually be up quite a bit, and people might have some profits on their hands. We know how to be a contrarian in a bear market. You buy when the stock is trading at pennies and nobody talking about it and everybody hates it. That's pretty easy, and then you just wait. But when do you sell? What are some sentiment tools that you look for when to sell a junior mining stock?
When everybody wants it. And
when
that's
everybody wants it.
Yeah, that's so easy to measure. I get people whining and crying and moaning and groaning at every bottom. Okay. And the sentiment among juniors right now is horrible, which I think is a good thing because I'm a contrarian. But when everybody wants to buy it like they did in 2008 and 2011, that's a good time. One of the things that I try to emphasize in my books is you need to figure out why you're in the market in the first place. You can never go wrong selling at a profit, because if you don't sell at a profit, the only other possible alternative is to sell at a loss. And that's what people end up doing. You cannot be part of the herd. The herd always gets slaughtered. You've got to be a contrarian. You're either a contrarian or you're a victim.
You're either a contrarian or a victim. And so, when you go as far as to say that it doesn't matter how good the news is, right? Like drill results, 20 meters of 100 grams, day after day, the company's putting out great news. Eventually, if everybody wants to buy the stock, if everybody wants to own it, or like everybody owns it already, you have to just ignore the news at some point and just sell.
Right, exactly. Strange enough, NVIDIA is a perfect example. I did an interview around June 18th, and I said NVIDIA looked like it was topping. And that's exactly the day that it topped. Now it's recovered and it's bounced back and forth, but $1 trillion was lost in NVIDIA stock over a 6-week period. $800 billion was lost over a 3-day period. So when everybody wants in, you want out. And when everybody wants out, you want in.
Perfect. And final topic, Bob, are there any juniors on your mind today? Is there any companies that you want to talk about prior to wrapping up this conversation?
Well, one, because you're very familiar with Snowline, what do you think of Sitka's latest results?
I saw there was a lot of VG, a
There
lot
were
of visible
40,
gold.
yeah, it was a 700-meter hole, and 680 meters of it appeared to be mineralized, and there were 48 examples of VG, and they were clustered near the bottom of the hole. I believe, it is my opinion, that it's another valley deposit, and it's going to compare to Snowline. And here's where it gets beautiful. Sitka has a $75 million market cap right now, and I think they've got 1.3 or 1.4 million ounces in a resource. Snowline has a $838 million market cap, so Snowline is worth 11 times as high as Sitka. But I believe the assays, and they're going to be out in 2 to 3 weeks, the assays from that hole are going to be barn burner, and it's going to be an intercept of several hundred meters. And I asked Quentin, and he thinks it'll be in the neighborhood of 1.3 to perhaps 1.5 grams. I have never seen that much VG in any hole ever. So I think it's going to be higher than that. It could be a multiple of that. But Sitka is an absolute sleeper right now. They announced the hole. The stock went up a few cents, and that's it. Now, did you happen to talk to them when you were there?
Sitka, no.
I think you missed an opportunity, and I would highly recommend taking a look at it, because I spent an hour on the phone with their top management yesterday, and they've got a great IR person. They're going to start telling the story. It is so far under the radar scope, and they're getting $75 million market cap. They're getting like $40, $45 an ounce for gold, which is stupid. So there's a lot of opportunity now in the juniors, including the really penny dreadfuls, the lottery tickets. I believe, and again, it's just my opinion, I believe we're going into a multi-year, perhaps 10 years or 15 years bull market. And it is a generational opportunity to make a lot of money.
All right, Bob, thank you so much for your time, and have a powerful day. And until next time, cheers.
Okay, thank you. It's been an interesting interview.